It is now 19 minutes before the hour of 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We are coming to you live from the Parliament building in Castries, St. Lucia. It is an auspicious occasion indeed. It is the swearing-in ceremony of the Cabinet of Ministers as the new administration assumes office here in St. Lucia following the 2021 general elections held July 26, 2021. I am Lisa Joseph. Alongside with me is Primus Hutchinson of the Government Information Service, and we are joined by veteran broadcaster Winston Springer, the senior. Setting the scene for you, on the inside you can see that the chamber is as full as what COVID-19 would allow, and it is continuing to fill. We have a number of members of the diplomatic corps, especially invited guests, who are here to join in on that celebration. And on the outside, we can see quite a festive mood. We have a number of tents that have been set up at the William Peter Boulevard, as well as Constitution Park, and where the big screen or large screen television has been set up as well. Individuals sitting under that tent, all wanted to be part of the ceremony. We can hear in the distance there the pan music, steel pan music playing on the outside, welcoming our guests as they will make their way into the Parliament chamber. Gentlemen, thank you so much and welcome. We also want to welcome Primus and Mrs. Springer, the members of the media, our media partners, all of the television stations as well as radio stations on island joining us for this broadcast. Just quickly before I move on to the rest of the hosts, just to give you an idea of members of the diplomatic corps and specially invited guests who are here. We do have the Ambassador of Brazil to the OECS, His Excellency Anwar Nahes, who's here. The Chief Justice of the OECS Supreme Court, Honorable Dame Janice Pereira, is here. We also have at this time Mrs. Charles, the spouse of the Deputy Governor General, Senator Honorable Jerome Walcott, and Honorable Roosevelt Scarrett is supposed to be here in chamber out of Dominica. His Excellency Abdelrahim Kadiri, who is the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco, is also here to join in the celebration, as well as His Excellency Oscar Arturo Esparza Vargas, who is the Ambassador of Mexico. His Excellency Hisham Tayyib, who is the Chargé d'Affaires for the Embassy of Libya. His Excellency Peter Chen, who is the Ambassador of the Republic of China to Taiwan. His Excellency Bernardo Andres Toscano Sardenas, who is the Ambassador of Cuba. Honorable Gaston Brown of Antigua Barbuda. Honorable Maria Brown as well. Honorable Denzel Douglas out of St. Kitts and Nevis, and Honorable Dr. Didicus Jules, the Director General of the OECS, is already in-house. We are expecting Commissioner of Police Milton Daisy as well. Life Escalona Barota, the Her Excellency out of Venezuela. We also have in the mix the Vice President of Venezuela, Her Excellency Delcy Rodriguez Gomez, as well as the Chargé d'Affaires of the Embassy of France to the Eastern Caribbean states. Mark Matillo is also here present in the Parliament chamber. And as I said, lots of activity. We do have musicians, we have other specially invited guests, and of course we'll be having the members of Parliament recently elect who will be taking the oath as the warrant of appointment will be made known by Prime Minister Honorable Philip J. Pierre. Let me hand over to Primus Hutchinson Quayle just before we say good afternoon to Winston Springer Sr.
Uma cerimônia apesar de nossa não fala não que ganha a vitória da sua comissão. Monsieur Gilbert Fulitman, and natural Mara, Monsieur Manisala, the Parliament, Samati, also about Barbary, fair prison. On is a président ministre droit a fait ici aujourd'hui à côté le mon parlement nouveau qui aba gouvernement étoile là qui peut contrôle mouvement et management pays pour le secrétaire qui pour venir et qui c'est l'année plusieurs grands grecs officiers les ambassades et le premier ministre aussi l'année premier ministre Dominique was carried l'année monsieur premier ministre Gaston Brown qui sorti à tig plusieurs grands ambassades et officiers sorti de divers pays qui ont représenté pays aussi aussi dans la nouvelle comme au cas expert à l'homme pour garder pour grosse célébration ça là aujourd'hui bon kai parlement kai concite musique aussi musique sylvain concatan aba bon kai parlement tout à l'heure la cérémonie a commencé la kai ni assistant gouverneur général monsieur Charles qui kai contrôle affaire pour cérémonie faire pour cérémonie et comme cérémonie kai point coup à ce moment là tout ces membres parlement ici mais nous monsieur Winston Springer qui ont second chef des affaires médias pays Mr. Springer
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you, wherever you are in St. Lucia, across the entire Eastern Caribbean and around the world. It never ceases to amaze me. We love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own. Nothing happens to anybody which is not fitted by nature to bear. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. Cometh the man, cometh the hour, cometh the day, date and time. Cometh Philip J. Pierre and the Philip J. Pierre administration. When we commemorated Emancipation Day, we were also reminding ourselves that we have to fight against attitudes that belittle our patrimony and cultural heritage whenever and wherever these exist. During the last 5 years in St. Lucia, these attitudes were astonishingly perpetrated by the former Prime Minister and his government. Our patrimony was equated with our credit rating. The St. Lucia National Trust, the guardian of our patrimony, was victimized by the government and was stripped of financial support. The colonialism that engendered slavery was described as having a conscience. Our national public broadcaster was closed down, and some of our best lands on which our slave ancestors toiled were gifted away to foreigners. Our national monuments were desecrated by allowing other foreigners to erect buildings on them, while at the same, historic buildings were torn down elsewhere. And incredibly, a project to promote the work and memory of our deceased Nobel laureate in literature was stopped. It is not coincidence, therefore, that on the anniversary of emancipation, the people comprehensively rejected and deposed the regime that inflicted such pain on our cultural consciences and visited such dishonor to our patrimony and the legacy of our enslaved forefathers. The people struck a thunderous and welcome blow for true emancipation, which threw that government out of office. The St. Lucia Labour Party pledges to continue to honor and act as your deliberators St. Lucia's first cabinet, as we hear, to swear in another cabinet after independence, comprised of Winifred Sinclair Daniel as its speaker, led by John G.M. Compton, William George Mallet, Alan Busquet, Haroldin Rourke, and Clendon Mason. Ira Duven, Clendon Mason, Hollis Bristol, Parry Husbands, and Dr. Graham Louisi, with the Honorable Alan Busquet as the leader of the opposition. But on the 2nd of July, the St. Lucia Labour Party came to power, winning that election on July 2nd, like I said, 1979. And Alan Louisi became Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. George Odlum, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Tourism. The Attorney General was Winston Snack, and the Minister of Finance in the Prime Minister's office was Michael Pilgrim. The Minister for Communications and Works was Mr. Kenneth Foster. The Junior Minister was Remy Lesmore. Community Development was John Odlum. The Minister of Health was Bruce Williams. And the Minister for Education and Culture was Kenny D'Anthony. Then we had the political debate between 1997 or 1979.
If you can hear the chairs of us who sit in the Parliament chamber, the chairs on the outside, which signal the arrival of Prime Minister Honorable Philip here. There, you see the arrival as well of Richard Sanders. In that vehicle there, the Deputy Governor General will be making his way to, and we can hear the loud cheers again as that vehicle door is open, and we can tell that the crowd very, very jubilant on the outside. Quite a scene, farmers, and Winston on the outside there as we await, and the cheers are getting louder. And there, we have the Deputy Governor General. Making his way to the Parliament chamber.
As I was saying, as we await the arrival of the Prime Minister and the Deputy Governor General, there was this political debate in St. Lucia between 79 and 82, which ushered in an interim government. And that interim government was led by Michael Pilgrim and was sworn in on the 22nd of January 1982. That cabinet comprised Alan Busquet as Minister of Health, Alan Louisi as the AG and Legal Affairs Minister, George Louis as the Minister of Labour, Leo Clark as the Minister of Education, Comwell Goodrich as the Minister of Communications and Works, Merlin Comby as the Minister of Trade, Industry and Tourism, and George Yabatis as the Minister for Community Development, Youth and Sport, with Prime Minister Pilgrim holding the portfolios of Finance, Home Affairs and Foreign Affairs. On the 23rd of May 1997, the St. Lucia Labour Party swept the polls by winning 16 of the 17 seats.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much for joining us today for the swearing-in ceremony of the Cabinet of Ministers. At this moment, it will be a very good time to please put your phones on silent as we are now broadcasting live to the world. We will begin in a moment. Thank you.
as I was saying there, Lisa, that the St. Lucia Labour Party won in 1997, the 23rd of May, winning 16 of the 17 seats, with Louis George being the only United Workers' Party candidate to win his seat, that of Miku North, with Cassius Elias winning the St. Lucia Labour Party, or for the St. Lucia Labour Party, the Miku South seat. And then began the Kenny D. Anthony administration,
And
comprising...
speaking of Dr. Kenny Anthony, Honorable Dr. Kenny Anthony
He's just arriving.
has just arrived, making his way, and we can also see he's accompanied by Honorable Sean Edward,
Yes,
and everyone is going through the protocol of making sure the hand sanitizing as well as temperature checks. COVID-19 certainly still with us as we move along into a new chapter in our history.
yes, back then Kenny Anthony's administration comprised 12 ministers and 1 parliamentary secretary, made up of 10 men and 2 women. Kenny D. Anthony was the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Affairs and Information. His deputy and Minister for Education, Human Resources, Youth Development and Sport was Mario Michel, who is now a judge of the Supreme Court.
And Mario Michel, Winston, is actually the mentor for Honorable Kenson Bebe Kazumi, who is now making his way to the Parliament chamber. He's just arrived as well. We've also seen the arrival of Honorable Jeremiah Norbert for Miku North.
Philip J. Pierre, our new Prime Minister, was then in 1997 the Minister of Commerce, International Financial Services and Consumer Affairs. Cassius Elias was the Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. Sarah Flood, yes, Sarah Flood, was in the Kenny D. administration of 1997, and she had the portfolio of Minister of Health, Human Services, Family Affairs and Gender Relations, with Walter F. Francois as Minister for Development, Planning, the Environment and Housing. The Minister of Communications, Works and Transport and Public Utilities then was Senator Calix George, who was responsible for changing the way we did business in terms of the main contributor to our information services being Cable and Wireless, who had the monopoly at the time. Senator Calix George was able to break that monopoly, thus issuing into St. Lucia the age of the cell phone with AT&T and Digicel and all the others who made up that. But then again, we have gone back to the monopoly system in a sense, because Flow or Digicel are the ones who have the monopoly on communication services in this country. But then Senator Calix George was able to break the back of Cable and Wireless. That's an easily verified tourism and one you could take to the bank. The Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Trade then was Senator Julian Hunt, who went on to become President of the United Nations. And Senator Hunt is here. Dr. Hunt, or Sir Julian Hunt, he is here along with his wife, Lady Jennifer Hunt. Vellon John was in that administration, and Vellon John was then the Minister for Legal Affairs and Labor. Dr. Damian Greaves, as he is now known, was the Minister for Community Development, Local Government and Cooperatives. Minister Rambali was also in that administration as Minister of Tourism and Civil Aviation, with Petros Compton as Attorney General and Minister for the Public Service. One does recall Prime Minister Anthony announcing the members of his cabinet a week after he led the St. Lucia Labour Party to victory on May 23rd, 1997.
And speaking of victory, we do have Honorable Stevenson King, re-elected parliamentary representative for Castries North, alongside his wife, Rosella King. And we heard that jubilant shout there from the crowd. Honorable Stevenson King receiving a hug there from supporter Gaspar of Feed the Poor Ministries.
Well, the order of service here today, if you may, would be, well, the arrival of the Prime Minister and the arrival of the Deputy Governor. They have both arrived and they are not at the moment seated in the chamber. But then we'll have the national anthem of St. Lucia to be done by a saxophonist, Mr. Glenn Henry. We'll have the opening prayer by the parish priest of Marchand, Father Raj, parish priest of Marchand, Castries East, where the new Prime Minister hails from. The warrants of appointment, oaths of allegiance, and oaths of office, part 1. Then we'll have a musical interlude. The warrants and oaths, part 2, will take place, followed by another musical interlude. You'll have the warrant of appointments and oath of allegiance of office. A statement by the new Prime Minister, Philip J. Pierre, then will be gifted by a musical finale to be done by Ronald Bohingson, the renowned Ronald Bohingson, and Irvin Ace, that should be Irvin Ace Lochter. The closing remarks and acknowledgements by the host, and we'll have the departure of the Deputy Prime Minister, and this will bring an end to the swearing-in ceremony of the new Philip J. administration 2021. Lisa.
And I do believe that in the chamber now we do have at the table there, we Honorable Dr. Kenny Anthony is already seated. We did have the Ancillary Canneries newly elected MP Wayne Girard moments ago stepping out. We do have the Soufrière parliamentary representative, Emma Hippolyte. And we can see seated next to Honorable Dr. Kenny Anthony, Jeremiah Norbert, new to the political circles, being victorious there in Miku North. We also see Sean Edward of Denry North, Givian Ferdinand, who was not successful at the polls, but is here within the chamber. And we also did have Attorney General Honorable Leslie Mondesi. We are continuing primaries to see the arrival of the parliamentary representatives and other specially invited guests. But we can hear that jubilation on the outside, so that's our cue, knowing that there is one of absolute significance arriving. And we can see Dr. Virginia Albert Poyant right there on screen, newly elected parliamentary representative for Babonneau. Yardi, the
Yardi.
very popular
with,
talk show host of NBC Real FM. And now we see the arrival there of Alfred Prosper alongside his wife.
When Girard PLC, University Islamic Canary, majorité sur mon parlement qui a fait la cérémonie a commencé à tout moment pour surmonter la responsabilité gouvernance pays pour cette année. Wilson?
Yes. Well, those who were active in the political life of St. Lucia in the years immediately following World War II were conscious of the fact that the time for constitutional change was approaching, and by 1949 proposals for political parties were being considered. When the 1951 Constitution was ready for inauguration, birth had been given to the St. Lucia Labour Party, led mainly by leaders of the trade union movement, and the People's Progressive Party, relying to a large extent on support from professionals and businessmen. In the first Legislative Council assembled on October 30th, 1951, under the new Constitution, the Labour Party was represented by 5 members. 2 seats were occupied by independents, as we have today, 2 seats being occupied by independents, and the People's Progressive Party only had 1 member in the House of Assembly. Today, the United Workers' Party has 2. Well, these 8 elected representatives, along with 3 nominated and 3 ex officio members, including the administrator, comprised the membership of the legislature. The administrator, however, was president of the council, with the post of president being filled by a nominated member, and that nominated member at the time was Mr. Maurice Salles-Miquel, elected by all the other members. On the Executive Council, provision was made for 3 elected members who were selected by 3 fellow legislators, but they did not comprise a majority, or the membership of this body also included 4 ex officio members, the governor being one if he was present in the islands and away from Grenada headquarters, where he administered the affairs of the Windward Islands, of which St. Lucia was part of. 1 official member and 1 nominated member of the Legislative Council, as the inner chamber of the House of Assembly, St. Lucia House of Assembly, is gradually filling up as permitted by the COVID protocols. We should see a start very soon, as the Cabinet Secretary is already seated, and many of the elected members have also taken their seats, among them the 2 independent candidates who run and won their constituencies in the persons of Richard Frederick for Castries Central and Castries North in the person of former Prime Minister, the Honorable Stephenson King. Lisa.
I just wanted to be able to give, because we do have seasoned Winston and Primus, we have seasoned politicians or who have had the opportunity to be in government or to govern, but we do have the new ones in the midst. And so what we have is a slate, a very good slate of experienced and young in this cabinet. And now we see the arrival of the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Honorable Philip G. Pierre, waving there to the crowd on there at Constitution Park, being stopped there intermittently. And Honorable Pierre, I would imagine that individuals wishing to have their photos taken, posing for some photos on the outside. But I just wanted to give some individuals a little idea of some of the new individuals. Virginia Albert Poyet, for instance, she was a teacher, and most people would know her from that, teaching at Babonneau and the Laguerre Primary Schools from 1971 to 1988. She was also the principal of the Four Combined School from 1988 to 2005. She, of course, is a long-standing member of the St. Lucia Teachers Union. She served as president for 6 years. She also served as vice president and chairperson of the Status of Women's Committee and the general secretary of the Caribbean Union of Teachers. She worked as a regional coordinator for Education International. She is also headed she's the current president of the National Council of Voluntary Women's Organization and the Caribbean Association of Women, CARIWA, which deals with matters of gender equity. She holds a Bachelor's of Science in Educational Administration, a Master's of Science in Training and Human Resource Management, an Executive Diploma in School Leadership, a Doctorate in Education, and a Certificate in Instructional Design and Technology. So she specializes in education policy, gender relations, project planning and management, lifelong learning, capacity building, and trade unionism. And there has been a lot of public speculation, expectation that Mrs. Virginia Albert Poyet will be assigned the Ministry of Education, but we are just moments away from finding out if that is the portfolio assigned to her by Prime Minister Honorable Philip G. Pierre.
We are moments away from another momentous occasion in the political history of Fair Helen. In March 1956, a significant step towards self-government was made when a full ministerial system came into being. The advent of the West Indies Federation had political effects in St. Lucia, or effects rather, other than the territory electing two representatives to the federal legislature. Constitutional changes were considered necessary, and proposals for those were negotiated in London in June of 1959. On January 1st the following year, the Constitution, which had been agreed upon in London, came into force. It provided for the abolition of the post of Governor of the Windward Islands. In 1967, St. Lucia got its first governor in the person of Sir Frederick James Clark on the attainment of statehood. We also got our first premier in the person of John G.M. Compton. The second governor of St. Lucia was Sir Ira Simmons, and the third Sir Allen Lewis, who went on to become our first Governor General, with John G.M. Compton becoming our first Prime Minister. And speaking of Prime Ministers, I've just spotted the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, who is now taking his seat. The Honorable Gaston Brown is here. So we have a number of Prime Ministers, I understand, from different parts of the Eastern Caribbean, the OECS bloc, who are expected here. But Mr. Brown, I can see, seated among the diplomatic corps. Like I was saying to you, that the advent of the West Indies Federation had political effects on this country. In January of 1960, the Constitution, which had been agreed upon in London, came into force. It provided for the abolition of the post of governor of the Windward Islands, and the administrator of St. Lucia became Her Majesty's representative in this territory. Now we are an independent country. We have a Governor General who represents Her Majesty in this part of the world.
Acknowledge the presence of the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Honorable Gaston Brown.
Like I was saying, that constitution provided for a governor of the Windward Islands. Under the provisions of that new constitution, the Executive Council took over control of the island's affairs under the chairmanship of the administrator. The 1961 general elections brought in its wake some political developments, which were later to result in a change of government and bring an end to the Labour Party rule, a rule that had lasted for 13 years prior. Before the Legislative Council could assemble for its first meeting, 3 of the 9 successful Labour Party candidates had resigned from the organization and joined the lone member of the People's Progressive Party in the person of George Mallet. The 3 who resigned were John Compton and the Buskey brothers, Alan Buskey and G.M.D. Buskey, whose son was later to serve in this parliament. His son, Rufus Buskey, served as our foreign minister and held other portfolios in 2 subsequent administrations of the United Workers' Party.
Just saw Vincent there, the arrival of Dr. Pauline Prosper, as well as the Commissioner of Police, Milton Daisy.
Yes, I was saying to you and giving you a little background, a little history. The first speaker of this august body,
The parliamentary representative for Ancillary Canneries, Wayne Girard, who actually is from the Jackmel community, attended the St. Aloysius R.C. Boys School and Castries Comprehensive Secondary School. Upon completion of his A-levels, Wayne took up employment at Flow, formerly Cable and Wireless, where he would work for 3 years in order to save the necessary funds to travel to the UK for his university education. Wayne earned his undergraduate degree in 2004 from the University of Wales in business with law and pursued postgraduate executive education programs at Chicago, both Oxford Said Business School, Corporate Valuation Program, and Oxford Said Business School FinTech program, and is currently pursuing a certificate in public leadership at Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Wayne has had a successful career in the City of London in investment banking and corporate valuations, and has had the opportunity to consult on several major development projects. Throughout the span of his career, Wayne has continued to support the vulnerable schools and he had continued to support the vulnerable schools and community-based groups within the Ancillary Canneries constituency, and is looking forward to making a more impactful and sustainable difference at a policy level as the next district representative.
And Winston, we can see that the chamber is quite hushed with anticipation for the arrival of the Prime Minister.
Yes, to be followed by the Deputy Governor General, Mr. Errol Charles. It must be noted that Errol is the eldest son of St. Lucia's first Chief Minister in the person of George F.L. Charles. He is the second child of the former Chief Minister George F.L. Charles, the first being Imelda Charles, who served St. Lucia in the broadcast industry for many decades. would like to say a very special afternoon to Imelda on this special occasion, having her brother Errol as the Deputy Governor General and presiding today at this, the signing of portfolios in the Philip J. Pierre administration
And so
2021.
it's a full circle moment for the Charles family today. And we can a shot there of Alfred Prosper. Next to him, Dr. Pauline Antoine Prosper. The ambassadors, members of the diplomatic corps there of
Speaking of Deputy Governor General Errol Charles, I would also like to say good afternoon to little sister Jean Charles, wherever you may be today around the world, Jean. Good afternoon to you. This, I know, is very special for you also to see Errol residing over the proceedings here today. All this you Charleses should be very proud of.
Honorable Sean Edward, as alongside Honorable Dr. Ernest Hilaire in chamber.
I was telling you of the first person to hold the position of Speaker in this honorable chamber. He was Speaker of the legislature, and that position was held by one Clive Mary Compton, a relative of Sir John, who himself was quite an astute politician in his time. He was followed by Frederick Jim Clark, another distinguished son of this soil. So Frederick is the one who should be credited for the formation of the United Workers' Party when it was formed on the 29th and 30th of March. That was Easter Sunday and Monday in the town of VA4. Still awaiting the arrival of the Prime Minister into the chamber, followed by the Deputy Governor General, Mr. Errol Charles, and the proceedings will begin with the national anthem to be played by saxophonist Mr. Glenn Henry.
And yes, and we are in for musical treats, definitely this afternoon. Our very celebrated Ronald Bohingston is here.
Please stand for the arrival of the Prime Minister of Signature, Honorable Philip J. Pierre.
Latest Prime Minister, newest Prime Minister, Philip J. Pierre, now in the chamber to loud applause from the gathering here as we await the arrival of the Deputy Governor General, Errol Charles.
The arrival of the Deputy to the Governor General, Mr. Errol Charles. stay standing for the national anthem of St. Lucia, performed by Mr. Glenn Henry. We invite Father Raj, the parish priest of Marcia, for our opening prayer.
Reading from the first letter of St. Paul to Timothy, chapter 2, verses 1 to 3. I urge then, first of all, that petitions, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving should be offered for everyone, for kings and others in authority, so that we may be able to live peaceful and quiet lives with all devotion and propriety. To do this is right and acceptable to God our Savior. God, our loving Father, thank you for bringing us together in this afternoon as our representatives are present here to take charge of their ministries in order to take care of our nation in its growth and development. You are the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. You have called them to minister us in all our needs as one nation. Bless them, Lord. Fill them with your Holy Spirit, that no unwanted ideas can get into them. Help them to put the welfare of your children first in their mind. Make them remember the words of St. Paul to Philippians in 4:13, I can do everything through Christ who gives me the strength. Be with them, Lord, that whatever they do, let it be for your glory and for the good of our nation, St. Lucia. Keep us all united as one family, as St. Lucians, and continue to support one another, moving forward without any bias. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Please take your seats. At this moment, we have the presentation of warrants of appointment to the first 4 ministers designate by the Deputy to the Governor General, and oaths of allegiance and oaths of office.
I, Ernest Hilaire, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God. I, Ernest Hilaire, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that as a minister of the government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly, to the best of my ability, faithfully in accordance with the law, and always in the interest of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia, and that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business or proceedings of the Cabinet, or the nature or contents of any document communicated to me as a member of the Cabinet, or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as a member of the Cabinet, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a minister. So help me God.
Be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that as a minister of the government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly, to the best of my ability, faithfully in accordance with the law, and always in the interest of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia, and that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business or proceedings of the Cabinet, or the nature or contents of any documents communicated to me as the Minister of the Cabinet, or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as a Minister of the Cabinet, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a Minister. So help me God. I, Sean Andre Edward, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God.
Alvaro Manos Baptiste, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God. I, Alvaro Manos Baptiste, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that as a minister of the government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly to the best of my ability, faithfully in accordance with the law, and always in the interests of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia, and that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business or proceedings of the cabinet or the nature or contents of any document communicated to me as a member of the cabinet, or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as a member of the cabinet, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a minister. So help me God.
I, Moses Jabatis, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God. I, Moses Jabatis, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that as a minister of the government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly to the best of my ability, faithfully in accordance with the law, and always in the interest of sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia, and that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business or proceedings of the cabinet or the nature or contents of any document communicated to me as a member of the cabinet, or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as a member of the cabinet, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a minister. So help me God.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this moment we invite Mr. Dylan St. Jules and Miss Esther George for our first musical rendition.
If you give a little more than you think, and you try to fix more than you break, if you're the kind who takes the time to help a stranger in the rain, there's a place for people like you. If you stand up for those down on the knees and lend a voice to those who cannot speak, if you shine your little light, give sight to the ones who've lost the way, there's a place for people like you. I heard the streets there are made of gold, and when you get there are hands to hold. People like you. People like you. The streets are made of gold, and when you get there are hands to hold. I believe the days of here are through. There's a place for people like you. People like you. I heard the streets of there are made of gold. Yeah. And when you get there are hands to hold. I believe. People like you. I know you're out there, so keep doing what you do. 'Cause there's a place out there for people like you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dylan St. Jules and Miss Esther George. And now we move over to the second part for the next 5 warrants of appointment to ministers designate and oaths of allegiance and oaths of office.
I hereby appoint you, Honorable Kenson Joel Casimir, Minister for Youth Development and Sports.
I, Kenson Joel Casimir, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God. I, Kenson Joel Casimir, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that as a minister of government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly to the best of my ability, faithfully, in accordance with the law, and always in the interest of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia, and that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business or proceedings of the Cabinet or the nature or contents of any documents communicated to me as a member of the Cabinet or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as a member of the Cabinet, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a minister. So help me God.
Senator and Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Investment, Creative Industries, and Culture and Information.
I, Gibeon Ferdinand, do affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. I do affirm. I, Gibeon Ferdinand, do affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia. As a minister of the government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly, to the best of my ability, fulfill in accordance with the law, and always in the interest of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia, and that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business or proceedings of the Cabinet or the nature or contents of any document communicated to me as a member of the Cabinet, or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as a member of the Cabinet, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a minister. I do affirm.
I hereby appoint you, Honorable Richard Frederick, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, with responsibility for housing and local government.
I, Richard Frederick, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God. I, Richard Frederick, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that as a minister of the government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly, to the best of my ability, faithfully in accordance with the law, and always in the interest of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia. And I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business or proceedings of the Cabinet, or the nature or contents of any document communicated to me as a member of the Cabinet, or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as a member of the Cabinet, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a minister. So help me God.
I hereby appoint you, Honorable Wayne Girard, Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development, and Youth Economy.
I,
Rossini Daniel Gerard, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution of St. Lucia, and I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia, so help me God. I, Wayne Rossini Daniel Gerard, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that as a Minister of Government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly to the best of my ability, faithfully in accordance with the law, and always in the interest of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia. And that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business of proceedings of the Cabinet or the nature or contents of any document communicated to me as a member of Cabinet or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as a member of Cabinet, except as may be required for the due discharge as my duty as a minister. So help me God.
I hereby appoint you, Honorable Joachim Andre Henry, Minister for Equity, Social Justice and Empowerment.
I, Joachim Andre Henry, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and laws of St. Lucia, and I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God. I, Joachim Andre Henry, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that as a Minister of Government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly, to the best of my ability, faithfully in accordance with the laws, and always in the interest of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia, and that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business or proceedings of the Cabinet or the nature or contents of any document communicated to me as a member of the Cabinet or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as a member of Cabinet, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a minister. So help me God.
Ladies and gentlemen, we invite Mr. Yannick James for a violin folk medley performance. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Yannick James on the violin. And now for the third part, we will invite the next 6 individuals for the warrants of appointment, oaths of allegiance, and oaths of office.
I hereby appoint you, Honorable Enoch Hippolyte, Minister for Commerce, Manufacturing, Business Development, Cooperatives, and Consumer Affairs.
I, Emma Hippolyte, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God. I, Emma Hippolyte, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that as a minister of the government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly, to the best of my ability, faithfully in accordance with the law, and always in the interest of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia, and that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business or proceedings of the Cabinet, or the nature or content of any document communicated to me as a Minister of the Cabinet, or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as a member of the Cabinet, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a minister. So help me God. I hereby appoint you, Honorable Stephenson King, Senior Minister and Minister for Infrastructure, Ports, Transport, Fiscal Development, and Urban Renewal.
I, Stephenson King, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God. I, Stephenson King, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that as a minister of the government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly, to the best of my ability, faithfully and in accordance with the law, and always in the interests of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia, and that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business or proceedings of the Cabinet or the nature or contents of any document communicated to me as a Minister of the Cabinet, or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as a member of the Cabinet, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a Minister. So help me God.
I hereby appoint you, Honorable Dr. Virginia Albert Poyet, Minister for the Public Service, Home Affairs, Labor and Gender Affairs.
I, Virginia Albert Poyot, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God. I, Virginia Albert Poyot, do swear or affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that as a minister of the government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly to the best of my ability, faithfully in accordance with the law, and always in the interest of sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia, and that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business or proceedings of the Cabinet of Ministers or the nature of the contents of any document communicated to me as a minister of the Cabinet, or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as a minister of the Cabinet, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a minister. So help me God.
I hereby appoint you as Senator and Parliamentary Secretary, Honorable Dr. Pauline Antoine Prosper, in the Ministry of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training.
I, Pauline Antoine Prosper, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God. I, Pauline Antoine Prosper, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that as a minister of government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly, to the best of my ability, faithfully, in accordance with the law, and always in the interest of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia, and that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business or proceedings of the Cabinet or the nature or contents of any documents communicated to me as a member of cabinet, or any matter coming to my knowledge in the capacity as a member of cabinet, except or may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a minister. So help me God.
I hereby appoint you, Honorable Alfred Prosper, Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Security, and Rural Development.
Thank you, sir. I, Alfred Paul Prosper, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God. I, Alfred Paul Prosper, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that as a minister of the government of St. Lucia, I will discharge my duties and perform my functions honestly to the best of my ability, faithfully in accordance with the law, and always in the interests of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of St. Lucia, and that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal the business or proceedings of the cabinet or the nature or contents of any document communicated to me as a member of the cabinet, or any matter coming to my knowledge in my capacity as a member of the cabinet, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a minister. So help me God.
And now we invite the Honorable Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, with a statement.
Prime Minister of Antigua, the Honorable Gaston Brown, former Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Dr. Kenny D. Anthony, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of Parliament, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you all to the swearing-in ceremony of the new Cabinet of Ministers of the 10-day-old St. Lucia Labour Party government. 10 days almost seems like 10 months, considering the issues that we have had to deal with. And I recall the patois saying that I first heard from my father when he was still a policeman and totally devoted to his job. And the saying is, you've got to sleep with chickens to discover whether or not they snore. When you put down a pool, see you can flee. My father and my mother could not have been better placed, since she was a teacher, to observe close up the various shades of daily life in St. Lucia. The chickens of which my father spoke were not of the plumed variety. They were the law-abiding citizens, some poor and uneducated, in need of a helping hand, seldom extended, an opportunity for self-betterment. They were the marginalized people who grew up telling their children that they would never be good enough to reach the top. They were to look for a Messiah to save them. The self-hate and low self-esteem prevented them from aspiring to the greatest possible achievements. I grew up thinking that I would someday give these chickens an opportunity to sleep silently by demonstrating to them that anyone could reach the top with discipline, commitment, patience, and a little gratitude. My many years in public life has caused me to know the difference between an opponent and an enemy. I also understand what can turn regular human beings into something unrecognizable the minute they are placed near the levers of power. The St. Lucia Labour Party government have started delivering on our promises to the people of St. Lucia. This school term, starting in September 2021, parents will not be called upon to pay facility fees for their children. I ask the school principals to be patient as the Ministry of Finance is in the process of finalizing the arrangements. The long history of conflict with the National Trust over the much needed subvention will be no more. As government has decided to reinstate the subvention, we look forward to a mutually beneficial relationship with the guardians of our environment and patrimony and respect their autonomy in their decision making. Ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon, we are presented to the people of St. Lucia the team of men and women who will form the next cabinet of St. Lucia. The allocation of ministries were not easy, as every member is blessed with unique talents and attributes that can serve the people of St. Lucia well. I have been up and I have been down. I know too that nothing lasts forever, neither the good times nor the bad. Life is itself not permanent, and someday I will not be the Prime Minister. It has been no easy road getting to where we are today. As I've said elsewhere, on July 26, 2021, the good people of St. Lucia demonstrated in no uncertain terms their dissatisfaction with the previous managers of their business and placed it in the hands of the St. Lucia Labour Party that I'm privileged to lead. We are determined not to disappoint you, the people of this nation. We are fully aware of what it will take in these unprecedented, difficult times to stay true to our promises. Deliver we will. Nevertheless, or to paraphrase the superstar rapper 50 Cent, we will die trying. The cabinet comprises of a former diplomat, university lecturer, and international public service in the person of Dr. Ernest Hilaire, an educator, a cultural activist, and passionate parliamentary representative, Honorable Moses Musa Shabatis. Another educator, sports administrator, and former national cricketer, the Honorable Sean Edwards. An orator par excellence, and former external affairs minister, trained in management, economics, and civil aviation, the Honorable Alva Baptiste. International civil servant, chartered accountant, and fraud examiner, and social security policy expert, Honorable Emma Hippolyte. Honorable Kenson Kasimi, trained communications and management specialist, a former national sportsman and sports administrator. Community surveyor and social policy expert, Honorable Joachim Henry. Experienced educator, trade unionist, and international workers' rights advocate, Dr. Virginia Albert Poyot. AFAB, experienced, trained agriculturist, former head of the Forestry Division, Honorable Alfred Prosper. Honorable Wayne Gerard, trained in finance and banking, and capable of using his national experience for the benefit of the people of Ansari. And to add their experience and ability to the team are educators and former school principals, Dr. Pauline Antoine Prosper and Honorable Gibeon Ferdinand. In acknowledgement of the will of the people in Castries North and Castries Central seats, and the role that these two successful independent candidates played up during the campaign in helping the Labour Party secure an overwhelming victory at the recent general elections, I have offered ministerial appointments to both candidates. In both instances, the will of the people has been clear and emphatic and should never go unnoticed. Honorable Stevenson King and Honorable Richard Fredericks, a lawyer by profession, have both held ministerial office, and in the case of the former, the office of Prime Minister. I look forward to the benefit of their ministerial experiences in charting a new and inclusive path on the governance of the country, and in securing the hopes and aspirations of the St. Lucian people. Their inclusion, though not members of the St. Lucia Labour Party in my cabinet, is to signal that my government will be nothing else but a government of the people and for all the people. I hope to head together I hope together we can serve the people of St. Lucia well. I now come to the former Prime Minister and Parliamentary Representative of Beaufort South, my friend, Dr. Kenny D'Anthony. Before I gave any consideration to cabinet positions, I met Dr. Anthony and advised him that I'd like to name and appoint him as a senior minister in the new government. I also invited him to select any portfolio that would interest him. Dr. Anthony advised me that he would not be able to take up any new cabinet position immediately, as he had to undergo minor surgery in the next few weeks and would need time to do so. He also had a number of legal matters to handle and would not wish to disappoint the clients whom he had agreed to represent. Consequently, we agreed that we will revisit my invitation in 6 months. It is my hope that given Dr. Anthony's undisputed experience, knowledge, and skills, he will help to shape the policies of the government and mentor the young, inexperienced ministers in our cabinet. I wish to make it clear that Dr. Anthony will not be receiving the salary of a minister during the period in question and will continue to receive the emoluments normally paid to members of parliament. Meanwhile, I wish to assure the people of Beaufort South, and indeed all constituencies whose parliamentarians do not currently hold a cabinet position, that the constituencies will not suffer any disadvantage as a result under this government and my leadership. I now come to Mico North, the history-making face of the future. The never-die Honorable Jeremiah Norbert. When he was searching for a candidate to contest the UWP fortress of Mico North, the one seat since its formation that my party has never been successful in securing, several candidates came forward. Among them was a young, impressionable junior police officer who stepped up to the plate and raised both his hands. Though I was immediately impressed, the more I came to know him, the more my admiration for him grew. Following the party's usual process, Honorable Norbert emerged as the party's candidate of choice. He immediately plunged into his work with a fervor that belied his political experience. But what he lacked in experience, he more than made up for in discipline. A discipline, no doubt, he developed as a result of his police experience. In fact, my information is that he graduated in his class of course number 41 at the top of the class. And if seeking to capture the UWP stronghold was by itself not sufficiently daunting, Honorable Norbert was simultaneously undertaking higher education, pursuing a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of the West Indies. Then came the horrific accident, one which should have scuttled the dreams of lesser men, but not Jeremiah Norbert. Instead of self-pity, he saw the loss of a limb as an opportunity to champion the cause of the differently able. He also immediately assured the people of Mico North, in particular, and St. Lucia in general, that though he had lost a limb, he had not lost the determination to represent the constituency. The rest, they say, is now history. But the journey continues, and as we ease him into the political leadership of this country, as he continues to pursue his academic qualifications, and as he continues his physical healing, I've decided to, in the first instance, to offer him the position of Deputy Speaker. I will revisit with Honorable Norbert in the short term, and once his progress is satisfactory, graduate him to the next level. I have assured Honorable Norbert that the needs of the people of Mico North will be a top priority for my government. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for being present today. I must express my gratitude to the people of Castries East for their understanding as to the reasons why the ceremony could not take place in the constituency. Let me assure them that once the COVID situation eases and we are given the all clear by the health officials, we will celebrate in Marcia. I thank everyone who has assured that this event is memorable. To the people of St. Lucia, I invite you to journey with us on this exciting journey to improve the quality of life of the people of St. Lucia. It's a task that together we can achieve. Our government will listen to the people and will always put them first. It is our pledge. I call on all men and women of goodwill to join us to put our country first. Our country does not belong to any individual or political party. It's ours to cherish and grow for generations yet born. I end with a quote from Proverbs 22:8. Whoever sows injustice reaps calamity, and the rod they wield in fury will be broken. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Philip J. Pierre. At this moment, we invite Mr. Ronald Boo Hinkson and Mr. Irvin A. Slaughter for their rendition.
I just want to say it's a great honor for me to be here today. I've done many performances in many prestigious and auspicious occasions, but this, in my home, is for me my greatest honor. Thank you. I speak to Adrian Ogier a lot about what we do and the fact that society can evolve and give new relevance and context to what we do is something that always amazes me about what we write and what we compose. And this song is called My Good Day, and it speaks a lot about what the Prime Minister and I have spoken about. It speaks to us believing in each other. It speaks to facing every challenge and converting it into a learning process so we can evolve from it as a people. It speaks to the fact that any young boy or any young girl from anywhere in St. Lucia can rise to the highest office in St. Lucia. And I want to share this song with you. This is Mr. Irvin A. Slaughter. This is a song called My Good Day.
This morning, the sun was shining. Looked out my window, saw my good day coming. It's been some time since my good day's been on my mind. Never here to stay, but don't need another yesterday. My good day, help me sing a different song. My good day, rock that job that took so long. My good day, bless me with good health and family. I hope you get your good day today. Don't stop believing, something good is coming. You've got that vision, work at it with passion, and soon one day what you need is gonna come your way. When it comes, be ready for that day that makes you happy. My good day helps me sing a different song. My good day, rock that job that took so long. My good day, bless me with good strength and family. I hope you get your good day today. Must see your future looking brighter. The only way to cope is never give up hope. It will get better. You ain't born to be a failure. Dust yourself off and say, pretty soon I'm gonna have my day. My good day helps me sing a different song. My good day, rock that job that
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This has brought us to the end of our proceedings today, the swearing in of our Cabinet of Ministers. We thank you so much for joining us. Those of you who are tuned in the diaspora, who are at home or even in Constitution Park, thank you so much for joining us. Do have a good evening. At this moment, we invite everyone to please stand for the departure of the Deputy to the Governor General, Mr. Errol Charles. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you who are tuned in Soufrière, in Vieux-Fort, Toulouse, Marsha, and also again Constitution Park, do have yourself a good evening. Please get home safe. We will now have a photo op with the Cabinet of Ministers.
And that brings us to the end of the official swearing-in ceremony, Thursday, August 5th, 2021. And I am Lucia Joseph, alongside Primus Hutchinson of the Government Information Service, as well as veteran broadcaster Winston Springer Sr. Just to go through again the portfolios which were announced earlier, when we go in order of seniority there, Primus, we have the Honorable Ernest Hilaire. Of course, he will be serving by a traditional convention for the St. Lucia Labour Party as Deputy Prime Minister. Honorable Dr. Ernest Hilaire is the MP for Castries South, and he has been assigned a portfolio of tourism, investment, culture, creative industries and information. Honorable Sean Edward, MP for Denry North, the Minister for Education, Sustainable Development, Science, Technology and Vocational Training. Honorable Alva Baptiste, the MP for Labrie, Minister for External Affairs, International Trade, Civil Aviation and Diaspora Affairs. Honorable Moses Jean-Baptiste, MP for Vieux-Fort North, Minister for Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs. Honorable Kenson Baby Kazumi, the MP for Grosley, is now the Minister for Youth Development and Sports. Honorable Gideon Ferdinand is now a Senator, Parliamentary Secretary in Tourism, Investment, Culture, Creative Industries and Information. Honorable Richard Frederick, the MP for Castries Central, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for housing and local government. Honorable Wayne Girard, the MP for Ancillary Canneries, is now the Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development and Youth Economy. He is now the Junior Minister to the Prime Minister, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, who is the substantive holder of the post as Minister for Finance, Economic Development and Youth Economy. Honorable Joachim Ferdinand, the MP for Castries South East, is now the Minister for Equity, Social Justice and Empowerment. Honorable Emma Hippolyte, the MP for Soufrière, is the Minister for Commerce, Manufacturing, Business Development, Consumer Affairs and Cooperatives. Honorable Stevenson King, the Parliamentary Representative for Castries North, is the Senior Minister, Infrastructure, Ports, Transport, Physical Development and Urban Renewal. Honorable Dr. Virginia Albert Poyot, the MP for Babonneau, is now the Minister for Public Service, Home Affairs, Labour and Gender Affairs. Honorable Dr. Pauline Antoine Prosper, Senator for Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology and Vocational Training. Honorable Alfred Prosper, MP for Denry South, is the Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Security and Rural Development. And we have Honorable Jeremiah Norbert, who has been assigned as the Deputy Speaker. And Primus, we heard the Prime Minister indicated that Dr. Kenny Anthony at this time, at least for the first 6 months, is not being assigned a portfolio, a ministerial portfolio, as he is due to undergo minor surgery, as well as he has some outstanding legal matters because he is an attorney with his own chambers, and he is looking to wrap up some of those cases. And so that there will be a revisiting the discussion perhaps within 6 months. The Prime Minister also indicated that Honorable Jeremiah Norbert, that they will also be revisiting the discussion, considering his appointment as Deputy Speaker, as to whether there will be an expansion of that as he undergoes his rehabilitation from his accident, as well as continuing his studies as a student of UWI in political science.
Ok, merci, Lucia, merci madame. Quand nous finissons la cérémonie, fini là avec côté Premier ministre Honorable Philippe J. Pierre et c'est le même ministre qui travaille au pays. Commencement, nous sommes assistants au Premier ministre qui est responsable pour le ministre des Affaires touristes. Ça c'est Honorable Dr. Ernest Hilaire. Aussi, Honorable Sean Edward qui a une responsabilité pour l'éducation. Honorable Alva Baptiste qui a une responsabilité pour affaires les étrangères. Honorable Moses Jean-Baptiste qui a une responsabilité pour santé et les affaires les grands citoyens. Honorable Kenson Kazemi qui a une responsabilité pour jeunesse, développement jeunesse, export. Honorable Gideon Ferdinand qui est un sénateur et qui travaille au ministre Affaires touristiques. Honorable Richard Frederick qui est un ministre, qui est responsable pour affaires CAIC, affaires comme ça, ministère Premier ministre là. Honorable Wayne Gerard qui aussi travaille en bureau Premier ministre là, et responsable pour économie jeunesse et affaires finances. Honorable Joachim Henry qui a une responsabilité pour le ministre de l'égalité, affaires sociales, justice et affaires comme ça. Honorable Emma Hippolyte qui a une responsabilité pour affaires commerce et consommateurs coopératifs et affaires comme ça. Honorable Stevenson King qui est legal ministre des affaires construction, sport et développement comme ça. Honorable Dr. Virginia Albert Poyot, qui est responsable pour le service public et les affaires qui nous fait faire une situation qui nous adresser une situation là et affaire travail. Honorable Pauline Prosper, qui est secrétaire parlement, ministre des affaires éducation, et Honorable Alfred Prosper, qui a une responsabilité pour les affaires agriculture, la pêche et sécurité magie. Et ça c'est situation là.
There is a West Indian island with St. Lucia's name. In the course of the years, it's acquired some fame. Let me tell you in verse something of that same St. Lucia. Quite a long time ago, from the ocean bed, a lot of volcanoes raised their ugly head, making islands out here, and in their arch spread St. Lucia. After millions of years, this island so green was sported by mortals, Arawaks I win. They had come from the south and had never seen St. Lucia. They liked this fair island, decided to stay. They made themselves gardens and vessels of clay, but did not call the land in truth, I may say, St. Lucia. Ianola, in fact, was the name they found, most fitting, for then did iguanas abound in this island of valley and high sloping ground, St. Lucia. At Granance, through Marseille, and at Black Bay too, they built themselves hamlets, and they grew in regions more island. Their trees too They didn't who? St. Lucia. But man-eating Caribs came to the attack, putting Arawak huts to fire and to sack. And in their fury they laid to ruin and rack St. Lucia. To their new conquered home the Caribs then gave the name Euonora. Your pardon I crave. This the name still flown from where the view fort seas lave, St. Lucia. Euonora in fact was another form of the Arawak name, lost in deadly storm, a synonym only by the scholars' norm, St. Lucia. When Spaniards arrived, we just don't know when, but sometime it would seem before 1510, they gave it the name it today bears, St. Lucia. The Spaniards, however, did not come to stay, for the English and French, they nicely made their way. But these two coveted for a long, long day St. Lucia. As a matter of fact, by army and fleet, those same English and French in combat did meet to win the Green Island so fair and so sweet, St. Lucia. At Cul-de-sac, Vigi, and the Lucky Mount, lives were lost in numbers that we cannot count. Red blood watered thy earth as from ghastly font, St. Lucia. It was in 1814 there came at last an end to the struggles that had overcast the mornings and evenings for long decades past, St. Lucia. But it was not only blood from England and France that in years of struggle did grimly enhance the story of cannons, firearms and land, St. Lucia. From far Africa's shores in slavery's days, many thousands arrived thy West Indian way. Toil and hardship were theirs, we must truly say, St. Lucia. And when Spanish and French battled for thy land, the slaves had to suffer, had to take a stand. In the fighting, indeed, some too lent a hand. Came emancipation in 1838. This was a blessing indeed, and put something straight, but did not dissolve all slavery's weight, St. Lucia. As the long years went by, thou didst raise thy head, and in 1967, thou was only duly led to become a true state, as it had been said, St. Lucia, and a fully independent state in 79. Thy efforts to crown. Now PJP, thy children find freedom, black, white, and brown. So hold now thy head, no more to hang down, St. Lucia. I am Winston Springer.
And thank you very much for that. And on behalf of Prime Minister Hutchinson, we want to thank all of our media partners for joining us. And thank you to all St. Lucians in the diaspora who viewed this broadcast. I am Lisa Joseph. See you next time.